Chapter 291 Xiao Clan. This handsome young prince naturally didn't know what Han Li was thinking. Instead, he said a few warm words of greetings to the previously acquainted Qin clan juniors and chatted with them, causing two of the young madams to blush. Their affection appeared to surge. When Han Li saw this, he coldly laughed inwardly. This young prince was indeed questionable. If these Qin clan madams truly threw themselves into his arms, there definitely wouldn't be a good result. Even if the young prince were to taste them and then leave them bare, Han Li wouldn't find it strange at all. After a short moment, Prince Xin said a few modest words to Qin Yan and brought the young prince away to socialize at another table. This caused the Qin clan juniors as well as the Hua pair that was speaking the prince to feel disappointment. Han Li took advantage of when nobody was paying attention and took a look at the back of the young prince, muttering under his breath as something flashed across his eyes. After several hours later, the feast came to an end. Once the guests were fully satisfied, they started to say their goodbyes to Prince Xin. Qin Yan had also brought Han Li and his juniors say their goodbyes. They then departed from the front gate of Prince Xin's residence. Just as Lord Qin thought to have Han Li board the carriage with him, Han Li suddenly asked something, much to his surprise. "Uncle Qin, could tell me who those two are? Do you know?" Although Han Li's words were polite, Lord Qin didn't dare to slight him. He hastily turned his head to look and answered, "Honorable nephew Han is talking about those two? Yi. That's the lord of the Xiao clan. He's the owner of a famous restaurant in Yujing, the Leisurely Cloud. Since he is a very low-profile character, I am not very familiar with him. As for the unfamiliar youngster by his side, he should be his grandson." After Qin Yan saw that Han Li was looking at this grandfather-grandchild pair, he wore an expression of surprise. He didn't know why Han Li suddenly became interested in these two. "Oh, so it's like that. Uncle Qin, you should leave first. I will return to the residence a bit later." Han Li thoughtfully nodded his head and then replied. Without waiting for Qin Yan's reply, he slowly walked next to the small path around the residence's wall. Qin Yan blankly looked at Han Li's back and then stealthily turned his gaze towards the Xiao clan lord, feeling a bit puzzled. But after a bit of thought, Qin Yan decided to board the carriage and ordered his servant to drive away. Thus, the Qin clan carriages departed from the front gate of Prince Xin's residence and returned to the Qin residence in the East District. Those Qin clan young masters and madams simply didn't discover Han Li's disappearance. Instead, they were in the back two carriages discussing what had transpired at Prince Xin's residence today. They were incomparably excited. They felt that although they didn't have immortal karma, they had stories to later flaunt off to their friends once they returned. After Han Li walked for the time it took to make a cup of tea, he eventually reached the back gate of the prince's mansion after walking around the tall walls of Prince Xin's estate. At this moment, the tall back gates were securely closed. Not a single person was in sight. Han Li smiled and felt this was just right. This way, he wouldn't have to use any concealment magic techniques. He arrogantly stood in front of the back gate and raised his head to look at the sky with idle boredom. After a moment of time, Han Li became blankly lost in thought. Suddenly, Han Li felt there were people approaching with cowered backs. He lowered his head and took a cold look. The only people he saw were the Xiao clan lord and the young woman dressed in male clothing. They walked over from the other side of the residence's gate. When the old man saw Han Li, his figure became sluggish and exposed an appearance of hesitation. On the other hand, the young woman by his side wore an extremely curious expression and didn't hold the slightest appearance of fear. The old man immediately realized something, and his expression immediately became tranquil. He walked forward in large strides, the young woman closely following after him. This junior Xiao Zhen greatly thanks senior for the lenient treatment inside the prince's mansion. If this one has offended you, junior is willing to apologize. After walking in front of Han Li, this Lord Xiao was still unable to determine how deep Han Li's cultivation was and became shocked. Feeling even more reverence toward Han Li, he rushed to salute him and respectfully apologize. Han Li's expression didn't change after receiving the salute. He then faintly said, "You aren't bitterly cultivating in some secluded area with abundant spiritual qi. Why have you appeared in Yujing? Could it be you were reluctant to depart from your worldly affairs and splendor? Were you unwilling to continue your cultivation?" Regardless of the outcome, Han Li first accused the old man of an unwarranted charge in order to easily overwhelm the other party and impose his own will. This would allow later affairs to flow more smoothly. Senior misunderstands. Because this junior's age is far too old, he no longer has achings to reach foundation establishment. Thus, the clan appointed him as the steward in charge of our sources of revenue in the secular world. It isn't about returning to the secular world and staying there. When the azure-robed old man heard Han Li's words, his heart relaxed, and he replied with a calm appearance. "You are the disciple of a clan?" Han Li didn't easily let them off and closely questioned this. Han Li wanted to get a feeling on where this grandfather-grandchild pair stood. If they were from a few famous cultivation clan, Han Li would be unwilling to provoke them. However, the surname Xiao didn't seem to be from a well-known clan. After he heard Han Li's question, the old man hesitated for a moment. He turned his head to the young woman by his side before sincerely replying, "This junior is from the Yun province's Feng River Mountain Streams Xiao clan." Feng River Mountain Streams Xiao clan? Han Li wrinkled his brow and carefully thought about it. He was certain he had never heard of such a name. Senior doesn't need to think so much about it. The Xiao clan this junior belongs to is but a small clan. Having never heard of it is a normal matter. Lord Xiao's face sank as he said this mockingly. Han Li was a bit surprised. After he sized up Lord Xiao several times, he calmly asked with his normal expression, "You speak quite straightforwardly. Are you not afraid that I would immediately exterminate you too?" The old man didn't react to Han Li's words. However, that young woman appeared to be a small kitten that had her tail stepped on. Her expression tightened as she immediately put her hand on her waist. There was no question that the bulge she was grasping was a storage pouch. But soon after, the young woman saw that neither her grandfather nor Han Li truly moved to act. With a red face, she put her hand away but was at a loss of where she should place it. She dilemma appeared extremely adorable. When the old man saw this, he glanced at the young woman affectionately before turning his head to Han Li and saying with a bitter smile, "Although this one is incapable of seeing through the deepness of your esteemed self's cultivation, he is certain you are a foundation establishment cultivator. This one clearly understands this. Junior doesn't believe that he has any magic tools, medicine pills, or any such treasures that a high-level cultivator would covet. If Senior truly was such a person, Junior would be unable to do anything. With this one's meager cultivation, running in resistance is futile. One may as well surrender and fulfill Senior's wishes instead of having him take out his anger on this one's entire clan. Junior only asks that Senior treat this one leniently and let this one's granddaughter go. She is this Junior's sole remaining descendant." The old man's last few words were extremely dismal. This caused the young woman to become extremely frightened and angry. She hastily said with discontent, "Grandpa, you need not be afraid. If he truly wishes to act against you, we will fight together. Then we won't need to fear him." When Han Li heard the words of Lord Xiao and the young woman, he stared blankly for a moment. But once he fully understood what the pair planned to do, he became amused. Apart from this old man's dreary words and appearance of selfless martyrdom, Han Li didn't see the slightest sign that he was seeking death. In fact, his magic power fluctuations indicated he was storing power in preparation. There wasn't the slightest intention of surrender. If it was clear he wanted to kill them for treasures, they intended to stake it all in a fight. That young woman was also quite amusing. Although her words were indignant, whenever she wasn't looking at Han Li with her black shining eyes, she was incessantly looking around, frequently exposing a crafty air. However, this young woman didn't know that ever since Han Li had completed the first layer of the Great Development Technique, His spiritual sense was far stronger than that of common cultivators. Her petty tricks had already fallen into Han Li's grasp. Han Li inwardly thought, perhaps this Fang River Mountain Stream's Xiao clan was something off the top of his minds. As for whether there is such a clan, even he doubts it. Thus, Han Li wore a mysterious smile on his face as he silently looked at the two of them. Since he neither said these two could leave nor did he make any hostile movements, the grandfather-grandchild pair stayed still for the time. From the beginning, the old man and the young woman had preserved their solemn and grim appearance. But after some time had passed, Han Li indifferent stared at them with a lazy appearance. The old man Xiao and the young woman eventually looked at each other in dismay. What does Senior intend to do? The young woman was unable to endure in the end. Breaking past the old man's restricting gaze, she jumped in front of Han Li and loudly asked, pointing at Han Li with an expression of grievance.